The Western education system is strong. In fact, according to ranking, Africa has one of the worst education systems, right? So it's not like we are, up there. Yeah. So the Nigerian teacher who is well trained on the curriculum, the concept, the topics, is a subject matter expert, can deliver the same value as a teacher in the UK, right? So the Nigerian education brings mastery through challenge and repetitive practice, while the Western, instead of just tries to build the entire person, without putting too much emphasis on assessments per se.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Brains and Bands by Tuteria. My name is Kende, and with me is the CEO and co-founder of Tuteria, in person of Godwin Benson. And beyond the fact that he is a co-founder of Tuteria, he is a dad in the UK, is a parent who has a daughter, and his family resides in the UK. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show this moment.
Thank you so much, Kende, for having me.
You're welcome. To start with, I'd like to ask, what has raising a child in the UK been like?
Great question, Kende. So I have a daughter. She's now 7. She's in year 3, going to year 4.
Interesting.
Yeah. When we moved to the UK, she was, I think, in nursery level. Before moving, interestingly, she knew how to count 1 to 20 because she attended a Nigerian school.
Oh, great.
And she knew all the alphabets from A to Z. She even knew how to say a few 2-letter words. Yeah. This was at the age of 2 plus, almost 3.
Wow.
And when we moved to the UK, I noticed that after some time, she had forgotten those alphabets.
Wow.
And she also couldn't count 1 to 20 as she used to, and then she was going to nursery school and all of that. So I noticed that there was a difference in the system, especially at that early age. Like Nigerian education seems to have established a strong foundation, which when we moved, it wasn't exactly the same, But after a while, she caught up, actually. I got worried initially that, why can't you do what you could do when we were in Lagos? But then I think when she was she was 4 years old and 5, she caught up, and started reading well and all that. So now it's actually quite interesting because they've exposed that to a lot of extracurricular. Okay. The system is a bit more well-rounded, so they try to build the entire child, not just their academics, They build their thinking, independent thoughts. They're able to challenge things, they're not closed-minded, they're more imaginative, Okay. So it's been great. The system has helped her to become a sharper child.
Wow, that's insightful. Thank you for sharing that. So some African parents are often faced with challenges such that when their children bring homework back home, they have to sit with them to do the homework.
Okay.
And then they begin to wonder that, is this the same year of school that they also pass through? Okay. So I want to ask this question. Is the Nigerian rigorous approach better for a child's grades, or is it just academic trauma?
Okay, that's an important question. I would explain it this way, that as a parent in the UK who schooled here in Nigeria all my life and have transitioned over to the UK, at least I've experienced both systems, and sometimes it's similar when you go to the US and other countries, right? Okay. What you find in the UK. Mm-hmm. What you often have in Nigeria is we are very aspirational as a people. Right. Therefore, we set high expectations for our learning. The values we place on education, we look for high expectations, we look for structure, we look for accountability on the part of the learner, that's the student. We look for mastery that you've gotten through challenge. That's why we have exams that, put you under the right level of pressure.
Right.
And this is desirable pressure, because what it does is it helps the child learn in a way that they can remember for long. It's called long-term memory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you often have that in Nigeria. It's not academic trauma. It's Nigeria presents just the right amount of pressure to make the child push themselves to achieve much more. Okay. Like I gave the example of my daughter, before she was 3, she could count. She could, know the alphabet. The system does that to you. Whereas in most Western countries, they focus initially on the on the child's creativity mostly.
Okay.
Their phonics, their confidence, their independence, their awareness of their world, right? They know a lot about how things work, how planets exist, politeness.
Okay.
They teach them a lot of just awareness, knowing who they are, accepting themselves and things like that. Whereas, although Nigerian system does some of that, but it's a bit heavier on the academics side. So it's not like one is better than the other necessarily. I think a blend of both is really where the sweet spot is. And oftentimes when you see a Nigerian or African parent in a diaspora looking to work with a Nigerian teacher, it's not because necessarily that teacher is better. It's because what a child needs is a blend of both worlds. You need the rigor of, practicing and building competence through hard work, which the Nigerian curriculum and system gives you. You also need the awareness of your environment and that independent thought that the Western gives you as well. So I won't say one is better than the other. I think both are important.
Oh, I see. So that means the blend or the mix of the two actually matters. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now talking about cultural identity, because as a parent in the UK, you know how the Nigerian culture and tradition is, but your daughter in the UK may not know that. Yeah. So how do you ensure that your child is still able to connect to the roots?
Great question. And I think this is where we as Nigerians, our culture really shines, because we have a great culture.
Yeah.
If you think about it, our culture is rooted in respect, is rooted in dignity, human dignity, is rooted in values that has held us for centuries. We are communal. We respect our elders. There are a lot of things that are rooted in the Nigerian culture, which, as most parents, you want your child to imbibe those same culture. Most times we're also religious. Most of us have faith as part of our culture. So for my daughter, first of all, the people who instill that culture are first the parents. You have to model that culture to your child, right? You model kindness, humility, hard work. Your child must see that in you. Even that aspiration of a Nigerian, it doesn't get, turned off when you go to US or UK. In fact, that's your driving force, right? One of the ways we've started to do that now is we wanted my daughter to learn a Nigerian language.
Okay.
And also learn about Nigerian history, because most of the history she knows is British history. And sometimes I'm like, don't be come and telling me King Charles did this in 1842. And I really don't care about King Charles like that. Tell me about what happened in the Civil War. Do you know about what happened with, different Nigerian historic events? So what we've started to do is we've gotten her a Yoruba tutor from Tuteria, actually, to teach her, and it's not just for the language, it's also for the culture. And also for the history. We've gotten her books that, animate the Nigerian history in a form that a 7-year-old child can actually learn. But most importantly, we model those values and culture to them. Let me also add that scientifically, it's proven that a teacher who has similar cultural background with a child can more accurately explain concepts in a way that the child can get it. So like when you're thinking of getting a teacher from Nigeria, you want someone who brings structure, right? Who brings rigor, right? Who is serious, because Nigerian teachers are quite they're serious minded, and most times you also want someone that just gets it. You know, there are some jokes we make, and if you say it to a white person, they don't really get it. When you say, like in Nigeria, they say, "We cut you eye," you know what we mean. Yeah. But if you're cutting eye, to a child that doesn't understand that, they don't get it. Of course. But when you cut eye for a Nigerian teacher, he knows what you mean, right? And they can also reflect that cultural identity back to your child, because we want them to know who they really are. Exactly. We want them to understand that Africa or Nigeria is a country to be proud of. Be proud of you, who you are, your identity, where you come from. And, interacting with that culture helps build that cultural identity that we want our kids to have. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. You mentioned that you hired a tutor for your daughter.
Yes.
A Nigerian tutor.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I want to ask this question. Does hiring a Nigerian tutor help keep the accent, values, and discipline alive in children who have never seen Nigeria? I don't think your daughter has ever been.
No, she has. My daughter has been in Nigeria.
Maybe once.
She was born here.
Okay.
She traveled and she comes. I think she's been here twice.
Okay.
Yeah, but even for children who have not been to Nigeria, let me put it this way: it's not really about the accent. So, like, I think about what is the reason why a parent abroad will be looking to work with a Nigerian teacher. Why? First of all, there is a cultural familiarity.
Okay.
That tutor can become like a non-parent authoritative figure in that child's life.
What does that mean?
It means that children there are ways where children listen to the teacher more than listen to the mother. For instance, like a teacher steps into an authoritative position in that home, but it's not your dad and your mom. So with your dad and your mom, you can be playful. Yeah. You can, negotiate your way out of things.
Exactly.
But then there's another person in that home who is not dad, he's not mom, but he has authority. Because the parents have deferred authority to him. And this person talks like your mom or talks like your dad. Right. He understands the nuances. You might even speak Yoruba, which you've heard your mom speak. And they understand themselves. So when the child's seeing all of that, he makes him feel this is a safe adult to relate with. And it's someone you have to listen to, is your teacher, you obey him, so to speak. So we are looking for that cultural identity. Like I said, we're looking for the rigor, the structure. We're looking for someone who can blend with our child and reflect back that African excellence back to your child, because we have something right, which is our culture. Yeah. And even if they are born in the US, UK, wherever, you really don't want them to lose touch with the culture. So that's the reason why we do that. And I think that it's a very welcome practice, because like we say in Nigeria, it takes a whole village to raise your child. Yeah. But when you move abroad, the village disappears.
You do it solo.
You're always doing it solo, and you're having to look for friends and relatives. So once in a while, bringing on someone from Nigeria to just interface with that child does a lot of good. And it challenges their minds, because also it helps to correct narratives. Because although this might be a bit more sensitive, sometimes the West doesn't paint the right picture of what Africa is. For instance, when I went to Kenya, I sent a picture of Kenya to my daughter when I was in Kenya. And she said, "Oh, it's not mud houses." And I said, "What? Who told you?"
So she was expecting to see.
She was expecting to see mud houses.
Wow.
Obviously, someone has taught her that, and that is wrong. So sometimes it helps to see that this teacher from Africa or from Nigeria, whether it's Kenya or Ghana, is an excellent person and is in Ghana. So it means that there are excellent people in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya. So it helps to correct their narrative, and they also get to ask a lot of questions. For instance, do they drive cars in Nigeria? Do you use horses? It's just weird, but sometimes the West have not done a good job of painting Africa in the proper way. So it helps to bridge that gap with tutors. Yeah.
I think that's very much insightful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so from what you said now, it's apparent that getting a tutor who speaks the same language with a child can help that child build cultural identity.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one. You also mentioned that tutors, let me say, like the African tutors, they have great quality and the likes. Now, this brings me to this question. An average tutor in the West, let's say someone who went to, let's say a graduate of Harvard or Cambridge. Now, compare that teacher, so to speak, with a Nigerian teacher here. Let's say you want to hire this tutor in, let's say in the UK, a local of the UK. You will probably pay more.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Now, but compared to a Nigerian tutor of the same pedigree, you'll pay let's say a fraction of what you have paid over there.
Yeah.
So can we say this is a sort of exploitation on the part of Nigerian tutors or African tutors?
No, it's not an exploitation. Absolutely not. It is. It's an opportunity. I mean, the world has always had arbitrage where the same skill costs more somewhere else than it costs
less.
It has happened in software, the likes of Andela. It was purely built on that premise that the cost of hiring a software engineer in the US is way more expensive. So come to Africa, hire the same engineer. But the opportunity there is, it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the parent because they get tutoring for less, right? It's a win for the teacher in Nigeria because they tend to earn more than they will have earned if they worked locally. So where it becomes exploitative is if the Western family, still chooses to pay low wages to the teacher within Nigeria. What we should understand is the Nigerian teacher who is well-trained on the curriculum, the concept, the topics, is a subject matter expert, can deliver the same value as a teacher in the UK, right?
Okay.
But however, they are also they also have expectations. So the teachers in Nigeria would want to earn more from doing that, because why would they do that if they can just get a job locally that pays them the same thing? So for them, it's an opportunity to gain exposure to global curriculums and global practices. It also helps them get better because now they have to learn. They are challenged. They have to learn a new culture, a new way of learning, a new way of teaching rather. And that's good because they get better. And the parents get tutoring without having to break the bank, right? Because of the cost. I mean, it takes almost £100 per hour to get a British teacher.
Wow,
that's so high. Between 60 to 100. But for 10 to 15 to 20 pounds per hour, you can get a very good, experienced Nigerian tutor. So
same value.
Same value. The arbitrage is important, and I think it's an opportunity for Africa. Just like we've had export of oil, export of tech, export of other kinds of resources, export of teachers is also now what we are coming to see. That teachers within Africa, the best of them, can now be exported as well to children all over the world to learn from them. And that is a win-win situation for everyone.
Wow. I don't think export of teachers is very common in Africa. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So
no, export in this sense doesn't mean the teacher goes there.
I know.
Yeah, so but you can still export his skill via online learning to people abroad. And that's always a good thing, because every country needs to export to grow your economy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can export teachers too.
So let's move to something every single parent in diaspora whisper about. They mentioned that their children are born here. I mean, they are born abroad, raised abroad, and how these children talk to their teachers is quite different from how the parents related to their teachers far back at home. So my question is, hearing of the stories of diaspora kids being disrespectful, does the Nigerian factor and our specific brand of discipline actually work over Zoom?
Okay, when you say walk over Zoom, that's like throwing
Like
a spanner
virtual
in the
learning.
wheel. Yeah, I understand you. Yeah. I think it does transmit. What ends a child respect is the question we need to ask. When a teacher shows up, what makes a child respect you? Number one would be you come forth with structure, right? You set the tone of structure. You set clear boundaries, right? This is what most typical Nigerian teachers come with. They come with seriousness. They are experts in the body of knowledge, right? Which gains the child's trust. They also have that sense of structure, discipline, accountability. Discipline here doesn't mean shouting at the child or insulting them. No, it means saying that this is what we're doing and we're going to stay focused on doing it. We have 2 hours or 1 hour, and these are the things we want to accomplish. And you're able to get the child to agree with you on that plan. That's what typically you get from a Nigerian teacher. I would also say that teachers, like in the West, not to discredit them, they give room for a lot of, they like to allow you express yourself. And you should. A child has to express himself. Of course. But then sometimes they also need to put guardrails. So when a child is expressing himself and is becoming insulting, you need to call that child to order that, what you've just said is wrong. This is the right thing, And I think Nigerian teachers tend to do that well. So over Zoom, yes, as long as you present yourself with structure, meaning there's a lesson plan, there's what to achieve today, you're seen to be an expert on the concept, and you allow the child learn through repetition, you give the right challenges. What you'll find is the child looks forward to that time with you, because every child knows when they are truly improving, when they enjoy that time, because they could spend that time watching TV, playing football, riding bicycle, or doing whatever. But if they've spent 1 hour on a call with you and they feel truly happy, they feel excited with what they've learned something new, they're not able to be disorganized around you. You come with order. You bring structure. You bring inquisitiveness, and you challenge them. They like that, right? And of course, you always need the support of the parent, because when you're learning online, the parent is the one on ground that must enforce whatever you're doing online. Because if the parent is not supportive, it's unlikely that it's going to work. So yes, I think that same discipline can be transmitted online, and it still does. We have heard stories of a lot of people who they look forward to their lessons, and when it's just like saying Mr. Lawal is about to come, everybody just sits down and get ready. You see the same thing happen online. So yeah, that works too.
Yeah, I think that makes me remember a scenario where a child in the UK was assigned to a tutor, and during the first class, the child was like, what's this person coming to do? She was sort of disrespectful. She wasn't even interested in learning. In fact, she had to turn off her camera. And this teacher just stepped in and, of course, greeted the child and was like, okay, this is the learning objectives for today. This one to do. He had to state the rules of the engagement.
Yes.
And the child was like, oh, It's like this teacher is different from the every other teacher I've been seeing around.
Yes.
And she had to enable a camera. She had to sit,
Structure.
get her book
Yes.
and pen, and then at the end of the day, she was like, "Thank you, teacher, this and that."
Yes.
So, and the parent, after the class, the parent was like, "Oh, I think you just unlocked my daughter," because it was quite strange.
Yeah.
So I think I believe that. I believe.
We've heard those stories even here at Tuteria. We've heard that a lot. And what that teacher did was set clear boundaries.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not your friend. I'm your teacher. It needs to be, I'm going to be your friend eventually. But on this journey, I am the teacher, you are the student.
Yeah.
And not saying that as a way to, it was called in a condescending way. It's just to set order. And structure. So the student appears with the same level of seriousness that the teacher has brought in. So yeah, good story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so I want to slow us down a bit, Godwin.
Okay.
Because we've been circling around big questions. Some parents will say we have been unfair to the Western education, while some will say we have not even gone any far. So I'm going to ask plainly on behalf of everyone watching us, are we saying the Western education is failing our children, or are we saying the Western education is failing our children and Nigeria is the rescue plan?
I wouldn't say it is failing our children. No, it's not. It's not failing our children. And Nigeria isn't necessarily a rescue plan either. I think we need to understand where both systems play and why a blend is what we need. The Western education system is strong. In fact, according to ranking, Africa has one of the worst education systems, right? So it's not like we are, up there. Yeah, so the best ones, what they get right, like I did mention, they get the independent thinking. Your child is trained to be able to ask questions.
Being inquisitive.
Inquisitiveness, creativity, imaginativeness. They are trained to be confident in what they know. And they're trained to develop the whole person. Sometimes where they don't do so well is the child can feel under challenged. What does that mean? Like in the UK, for instance, they don't do any major exam until, I think it's year 5 or thereabouts.
Yeah, year 5. That's
when they do like major exams, So, and then of course it goes on from there. But for a Nigerian child, we take major exams from, every term, literally. So what happens is like we are challenged. Our system challenges us. What you now find is parents who have grown through this Nigerian system, they are used to that challenge. We have the likes of competition, which now in most schools, they've sort of downplayed the competitiveness around results. But back then, we used to have first, second, third, fourth.
Right.
And what that meant was every time you had a chance to increase your position. And that brought about healthy competition, because you were always challenged to hit the next milestone. So the Nigerian education brings mastery through challenge and repetitive practice, while the Western sort of just tries to build the entire person without putting too much emphasis on assessments per se. So it's not like it's bad. It's just what the system is. Therefore, in fact, I was speaking with one Nigerian parent in the UK, and I could sense her fright about the fact that her son is approaching year 5, and that's going to be the first time he's going to be taking a structured exam.
Wow.
And she thinks he would find it strange because he has never had to do that before. So she had to quickly try to look for a tutor to just simulate the exam situation, because that is a fear she has, because she knows the Nigerian system. That's why they try to look for that intervention. Not like one is better than the other.
other.
The blend is really where the magic lies.
Yeah, the blend is really where the magic lies. I think I agree with that line. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me bring us back to something very practical.
Okay.
Because parents who are listening and watching us now want something specific. They want cultural alignment, they want discipline, they want value, yet they are very nervous. So I want to ask, how do you vet for quality? I mean, because the fear is that the tutor in Nigeria may not understand the curriculum and exam prep such as GCSE and SAT. So how do you vet for quality of these tutors?
Okay, great question. Fundamentally, education as a whole, and specifically tutoring, is all about outcomes in the end. While discipline is great, cultural alignment is great, in the end, you want to be able to measure the difference, the change, what was the result of this engagement after a period of time, say 3 months, or do you have an exam you're preparing for, you want the child to pass. So the concern of parents are valid, and they have to have that concern, because if you're spending any time and money hiring a tutor, you want to be quite sure about the outcomes you're going to get.
Exactly.
Now, how do we vet them? Of course, we vet on various levels. You vet subject knowledge, right? If it's physics or math, they need to be able to demonstrate competencies through assessment in those subject areas. You also test curriculum knowledge, because interestingly, because Nigeria operates a British curricula, British curriculum, most teachers are already versed in preparation for exams like IGCSE, checkpoints, even SAT, because that's an exam that is done within Nigeria. IELTS, ACT, IB, those are exams that are done even within Nigeria. So the teachers have had to prepare countless number of students for those exams. There might just be slight nuances, but those exams are the same. They're standard exams, right? So we also ensure we get to also have the experience with those exams, right? That also have experience with online tooling, how to use Zoom, Google Classroom, or whatever systems that we've built. We've also done checks around their safety, their identity, their background checks, to be sure that they are safe people to introduce your kids to. We ensure that they have understanding of the curriculum, like the school system in which the child is in. If it's a child in the UK, US, or Canada, we need to make sure that the teachers we bring on board have at least a sense of understanding. Of course, we do our job to give them some training to make sure they understand the context of the child. But in terms of the subject knowledge, that's a requirement we do not compromise on. And then we've gone on to see that most teachers, with support from us, from the parent, they're able to rise to the occasion very consistently. So I think that the concern around quality and vetting is something that Tuteria has done, and parents can come to us and trust that we present them with qualified teachers that are, that are transformative to their child's education.
That's brilliant. Thank you. You've heard it all from Godwin Benson, the CEO of Tuteria. If a parent in diaspora who needs a quality, well-vetted, disciplined and experienced Nigerian tutor to help your child thrive and succeed academically, you can reach out to us at tuteria.com or check the contact details in the description. We've come to the end of this episode. Kindly subscribe, follow, and share, and also turn on your post notification to get more insightful content like this. Thank you for coming, Godwin. It's nice having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Kende.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
My regards to your family.
I will send it. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Bye.